My name is Cora, and I am 67 years old. I live alone in a quiet house in Vermont, surrounded by maple trees and memories. Last Tuesday, a letter arrived that shattered everything I thought I knew about my own son. There are moments in life when a single envelope can change your entire world. I never imagined my child, the boy I raised alone, would write words that cut deeper than any knife. Some letters you never forget. Before I begin this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you loved unconditionally, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Stay with me until the end because this story might just change how you think about family sacrifice and self-respect. My husband Harold was a construction engineer with kind eyes and strong hands. He used to tell me that our little family was his greatest achievement. Derek was 4 years old when Harold left for work one morning and never came back. I remember that day with painful clarity. I was in the backyard teaching Derek how to ride his tricycle. The sun was warm on my face, and Derek was laughing, his tiny legs pumping as fast as they could. Then, the phone rang. A foreman from the construction site spoke words that made no sense at first. There had been an accident, a crane malfunction. Harold was gone before the ambulance arrived. I stood in the kitchen, holding the phone, watching through the window as Derek continued riding his tricycle in circles, completely unaware that his world had just collapsed. The life insurance company sent a check for $250,000. It felt like blood money. How could any amount replace the man who had promised to grow old with me? But I had a son to raise. Grief was a luxury I could not afford. I quit my full-time teaching position because Derek needed me home. He would wake up screaming for his daddy in the middle of the night. He would ask me when Daddy was coming back from his trip. Explaining death to a 4-year-old is something no mother should have to do. I took on multiple part-time jobs. I tutored students in the evenings. I did alterations and sewing for neighbors. I sold homemade jams at the farmer's market on weekends. There were nights when I stayed up until 2 in the morning finishing a dress for a client, only to wake up at 6 when Derek needed breakfast. I never bought new clothes for myself. My winter coat lasted 15 years. I drove the same used car until it had over 200,000 miles on it. Every spare dollar went into savings or into giving Derek the childhood he deserved. He had nice clothes for school. He had birthday parties with cakes I baked myself. He had baseball equipment and summer camp and everything a boy could want. He never knew how many meals I skipped so he could have seconds. The $250,000 from Harold's insurance became my obsession. I researched investments. I read books about compound interest. I put every penny I could spare into that fund. Over 30 years, through careful management and disciplined saving, it grew into $1.5 million. $1,500,000. I never touched it. Not when my roof needed replacing. Not when I needed dental work I could barely afford. Not when my old car finally died and I had to buy another used one because a new car would mean dipping into Derek's future. That money was for my son, for his children, for generations of our family yet to come. I lived in the same small house, wore the same old clothes, and dreamed about the day I would hand Derek the keys to his inheritance. He never knew about the trust fund. I wanted it to be a surprise when the time was right. Derek grew up to be a fine young man. He graduated from a prestigious university with honors. He got a good job at a marketing firm in Boston. Every Sunday he would call me and we would talk for hours about everything and nothing. We had traditions. Every Thanksgiving he would come home and help me make his grandmother's stuffing recipe. Every Christmas we would watch old movies together and drink hot cocoa. He used to hold my hand and say, "Mom, you are my hero. You sacrificed everything for me." I believed those words. I believed my sacrifices had created an unbreakable bond between us. I had no idea that everything would change when Derek met Diane. Derek was 32 when he called to tell me he had met someone special. Her name was Diane, and he had met her at a company party. His voice was different when he talked about her, excited, almost nervous. I was happy for him. Every mother wants her son to find love. The first time I met Diane, she arrived 45 minutes late to the dinner I had spent all day preparing. I had made Derek's favorite meal pot roast with roasted vegetables and homemade apple pie for dessert. The table was set with my best dishes, the ones I only used for special occasions. When Diane finally walked in, she did not apologize for being late. She glanced around my small house with an expression I could not quite read. Was it judgment? Pity, I told myself I was imagining things. She barely touched the food. I am on a special diet, she said, pushing the pot roast around her plate. I cannot eat most of this. Derek had not mentioned any dietary restrictions, but I smiled and offered to make her something else. She declined, saying she was not hungry anyway. Throughout dinner, she checked her phone constantly. When I asked about her family, her job, her interests, she gave one-word answers. Fine. Good. Busy. Her eyes never quite met mine. Derek squeezed my hand under the table. She is just nervous, Mom. She will warm up. I wanted to believe him. The engagement came 8 months later. Derek called to tell me the news, and I cried happy tears. My son was getting married. I would finally have a daughter-in-law, maybe grandchildren someday. But I was not involved in the wedding planning, not once. Diane made all the decisions. The venue was a country club in Connecticut where her family had been members for generations. The guest list was filled with her relatives and friends. The menu was selected without asking if I had any preferences or allergies. On my son's wedding day, I was seated at a table in the back corner. Not at the family table, not even close to it. When it came time for the toasts, Diane's mother gave a long, tearful speech about how blessed she was to have Derek joining their family. The best man spoke. The maid of honor spoke. Several of Diane's relatives spoke. No one asked me to say anything. I sat in my corner, clutching my glass of champagne, watching my only son marry a woman who had not looked at me once during the entire ceremony. I told myself it was Diane's day. I should not expect special treatment. After the wedding, Derek called less often. Our Sunday conversations became every other Sunday, then once a month, then hardly ever. When I called him, the conversations were short. Sorry, Mom, I have to go. Diane needs me. We have plans this weekend. Maybe next time. I texted him simple messages. Just thinking of you. Hope you are well. I love you. Sometimes he replied with a quick, love you too. Sometimes he did not reply at all. I started to feel like a stranger in my own son's life, but I kept telling myself that newlyweds needed space. He was building a life with his wife. I should be supportive, not demanding. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed my loneliness. I waited for things to get better. They only got worse. I found out Diane was pregnant through Facebook. Not through a phone call from my son. Not through a card or a visit. Through a social media post that announced, "We are thrilled to share that baby is on the way." I stared at my computer screen for a long time. My son was going to be a father. I was going to be a grandmother. And I had learned about it the same way his high school acquaintances did. I called Derek immediately. He sounded uncomfortable. I was going to tell you, Mom. Diane wanted to announce it her way first. Her way. Everything was always her way. I offered to help during the pregnancy. I could come stay for a while, help prepare the nursery, cook meals, whatever they needed. I had raised a child alone. I knew how exhausting those early months could be. Derek hesitated. That is really nice of you, Mom, but Diane's mother is already planning to help. We do not want to burden you. Burden? After everything I had sacrificed, I was a burden. When my granddaughter Emma was born, I was not allowed to visit for 2 weeks. Diane needs rest, Derek explained. No visitors. When I finally got permission to come, I drove 3 hours with a trunk full of gifts. I had knitted a baby blanket by hand, working on it for 3 months. Every stitch was made with love. Diane met me at the door and informed me I could stay for 30 minutes. She did not want Emma overstimulated. 30 minutes to meet my granddaughter. I held Emma for perhaps 5 minutes before Diane took her back. You are holding her wrong, she said, and she does not like that blanket. She took the blanket I had spent months making and tossed it onto a chair in the corner. I never saw it again. I suspect it went straight into the garbage. Derek stood by and said nothing. For the next 3 years, I was systematically erased from my son's life. Emma's first birthday party happened without me. I found out about it through photos on Facebook. The pictures showed over 40 guests, including relatives of Diane's I had never met, but there was no room for Emma's only living grandmother. I called Derek, trying to keep my voice calm. I thought it was just a small party, he said. The photos said otherwise. Thanksgiving came and went. I invited them to Vermont to our traditional dinner in the house where Derek had grown up. He declined. We are going to Diane's parents this year, and the next year, and the year after that. Christmas was the same. I sent gifts for Emma, expensive toys and clothes I could not really afford. I never received a thank you. I did not even know if Emma ever saw them. I called on Christmas Day. Diane answered. Derek is busy with family, she said. I will tell him you called. He did not call back. By the third year, I had become a ghost, a forgotten photograph, a name that might come up occasionally but was never important enough to include. I decided I needed to talk to my son face to face. I could not keep pretending everything was fine when my heart was breaking. I drove 3 hours to their home without calling ahead. I knew if I called, they would find an excuse to say no. Diane opened the door. Her smile was cold. Derek is not here, she said. But his car was in the garage. I could see it through the window. I will wait, I said. I sat in my car for 2 hours. Finally, Derek came outside. His face was tight with irritation. Mom, you cannot just show up like this. Diane does not like surprises. I tried to explain how I felt, how lonely I was, how much I missed him and Emma, how it hurt to be excluded from their lives. He cut me off. You are being dramatic, Mom. Everything is fine. You are imagining problems that do not exist. I drove home, in tears, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. But even then, I did not give up hope. I told myself that someday things would change. Someday my son would remember the mother who had given him everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon, ordinary in every way. I was in my garden watering the tomato plants Harold had helped me build, raised beds for so many years ago. The sun was warm, the birds were singing, and for a moment I felt almost peaceful. The mail truck stopped at my box. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked down the driveway. Among the bills and advertisements was a thick envelope with my name written in Derek's handwriting. My heart lifted. Perhaps it was a birthday card, even though my birthday had passed months ago. Perhaps it was an invitation to finally visit Emma. Perhaps my son had finally remembered me. I carried the envelope inside and sat at my kitchen table. I opened it carefully, savoring the anticipation. The letter inside was typed, not handwritten. Typed, printed, and signed. I read the first lines and my hands began to shake. Mom, Diane, and I have discussed this for a long time. We think it is best if you do not come to the family reunion next month. Your presence makes Diane uncomfortable. We are cutting ties. Please do not contact us anymore. This is for the best. For everyone. At the bottom, Derek's signature, the only handwritten part of the entire letter. I read it again, and again, and again, 5 times total, each time hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. My son had typed out a letter telling me I was no longer welcome in his life. He had not even cared enough to write it by hand. It was clinical, cold, final. I do not know how long I sat there. The sun moved across the sky. Shadows lengthened. The tomato plants went unwatered. I kept seeing Derek as a little boy. The way he used to run into my arms after school, the way he would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the way he looked at me on his graduation day and whispered, I could not have done this without you, Mom. What had I done wrong? Where had I failed? How had the child? I would have died for become someone who could write those words. The tears would not come. The pain was too deep for tears. It sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold and immovable. Night fell. I did not turn on the lights. I sat in the darkness of my kitchen, holding a letter that had ended my life as a mother. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory, every sacrifice, every meal I skipped, every luxury I denied myself. 30 years of putting my son first, and this was my reward. Around 3 a.m, something shifted inside me. The pain was still there, but underneath it, something else began to grow. A strange calm, a clarity I had not felt in years. I remembered something my own mother had told me before she passed. Never beg for a seat at a table where you built the foundation. I had built everything for Derek. The foundation of his entire life was constructed from my sacrifices. And now he was telling me I was not welcome at the table. For the first time in my life, I stopped asking what I had done wrong. I started asking what I was going to do about it. When morning came, I got out of bed. I washed my face. I made coffee. I sat at the same kitchen table where I had read that letter. I picked up my phone and opened a text to Derek. I typed one word, understood. No explanations, no pleading, no anger, just one word that said everything I needed to say. I pressed send, and then I made a phone call that would change everything. Richard had been my attorney for over 20 years. He was the one who helped me set up the trust fund after Harold died. He had watched it grow from $250,000 to $1.5 million. He knew what that money represented. When I called him that morning, he could hear something different in my voice. "Cora, is everything all right?" "No," I said, "but it will be. I need to make changes to the trust fund." There was a long pause. "Derek is the sole beneficiary," he said carefully. "Are you sure about this?" I told him about the letter. I told him about the past 3 years. I told him about being erased from my own son's life. My voice did not shake. The tears did not come. Richard listened without interrupting. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "I understand," he said. "What do you want to do?" "Remove Derek's name. Completely." He asked me several more times if I was certain. He explained that once the documents were signed, the change would be immediate and final. I told him I understood. He scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. I drove to his office with the windows down, letting the Vermont breeze wash over me. I felt strange. Not happy exactly. Not sad either. Something in between. Something that felt almost like freedom. In Richard's office, I read every page of the documents. $1.5 million. 30 years of sacrifice and discipline and denial. I was signing it all away from the son who had thrown me away like garbage. Richard asked who the new beneficiaries would be. I had thought about this during my sleepless night. "I want it divided," I said. "Half to the Children's Hope Foundation for orphaned kids, half to the Vermont Education Fund for underprivileged students." He nodded and made the changes. I signed every page without hesitation. When I finished, Richard looked at me with something like respect. "You are a strong woman, Cora." I shook my head. "I am just a woman who finally learned that love does not mean accepting abuse." That evening, I went home and began cleaning. I took down the photographs of Derek and Diane from my walls. I did not throw them away. I put them in a cardboard box and slid it under the stairs. Maybe someday I would look at them again, but not now. I called my friend Margaret, who had been my neighbor for 30 years. I told her everything. She listened, and when I finished, she said exactly what I needed to hear. "You did the right thing, Cora. You deserve to be treated with respect by everyone." That night, I did something I had not done in decades. I went online and bought a plane ticket to California. My old college roommate Patricia lived near San Diego. We had not seen each other in 15 years, but we exchanged Christmas cards every year. I sent her a message asking if I could visit. She responded within minutes. "Come immediately. I have a guest room with your name on it. I booked the flight for the following week." Then I went to bed and slept soundly for the first time in months. 24 hours later, I woke up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. I checked the screen. 68 missed calls from Derek. 43 text messages. I read them one by one, sitting up in bed with my morning coffee. "Mom, what did you do?" The lawyer called. "This is insane. We need to talk. Please." "Mom, I am sorry. Please call me back. This is a misunderstanding. I did not mean those things in the letter." "Please, Mom, do not do this. I am your son." The messages grew increasingly desperate. By the end, he was sending them every few minutes. "Mom, please answer me. I need to explain. Diane had nothing to do with this. Please." I read every single message. Then I turned off my phone, put it in a drawer, and went to water my tomato plants. The sun was warm. The birds were singing. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. 3 days passed. The phone stayed in the drawer. I did not check it once. On the 4th day, I was reading a book in my living room when I heard a car pull into my driveway. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure getting out. Derek. He was alone. No Diane, no Emma, just my son looking like he had not slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled. His face was unshaven. His eyes were red. The doorbell rang. I took my time answering. When I opened the door, he looked at me like a drowning man reaching for a life raft. "Mom, we need to talk, please." His voice cracked on the last word. I I stood in the doorway, not moving aside to let him in. You said you wanted to cut ties, I said. I respected your wish. I did not mean it, he said. Diane, she... He trailed off. I interrupted him. Do not blame Diane. You wrote that letter. You signed it. Your signature was the only handwritten part. He flinched like I had slapped him. I was wrong, he said. Mom, I was so wrong. I am sorry. I looked at my son, this man I had sacrificed everything for, and I felt something complicated. Love was still there. It would always be there. But something else was there too. A wall that had not existed before. He tried again. The money. I need it for Emma's future. She is your granddaughter. Emma, I said. You would not even let me hold her properly. Diane was just protective. Protective, I cut him off. She isolated me from my own grandchild. She turned you against your own mother. And you let her. Derek had no answer for that. I told him everything I had kept inside for 3 years. The birthday party I was not invited to. The Thanksgiving dinners I spent alone. The Christmas gifts that were never acknowledged. The phone calls that were never returned. For 3 years, I was a ghost in your life, I said. And I accepted it because I loved you. But love without respect is nothing. I did not realize, he whispered. His eyes were wet. That is the problem, I said. You did not want to realize. Then he told me what I had suspected all along. Diane had been behind everything. She had convinced him that I was toxic, controlling, manipulative. She had wanted me removed from their lives entirely, and the trust fund. She had wanted it transferred to her control. When she found out you removed my name, Derek said she lost her mind. She screamed at me for hours, then she kicked me out. So, you came here because you have nowhere else to go, I said, not because you truly regret what you did. He could not meet my eyes. I took a deep breath. Derek, I love you. I always will. You are my son. He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. But I will not be your backup plan, I continued. When you figure out who you really are, not who Diane wants you to be, we can talk. Until then, I need to protect my peace. I stepped back and closed the door. Gently, not with anger, with finality. Through the window, I watched him stand on my porch for a long time. Then he walked back to his car and drove away. I leaned against the closed door and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 3 years. There were no tears, no regret, only a profound sense of rightness. I had done what I needed to do. The first week after Derek left was harder than I expected. The house felt emptier than usual. I found myself reaching for the phone, wanting to call him out of pure habit. I had to remind myself why I had made this choice. Some nights I dreamed about Derek as a little boy, running through the sprinklers in our backyard, blowing out candles on his birthday cake, falling asleep on my lap during long car rides. Those memories still had the power to make my heart ache. But then I would remember the letter, the typed words, the clinical detachment, the signature that was the only personal touch in a document designed to erase me from existence, and the ache would transform into something else. Resolve. The trip to California saved me. Patricia met me at the San Diego airport with a sign that said, "Welcome home, college roomie." She looked older, of course. We both did. But her smile was the same one I remembered from our dorm room 45 years ago. She had been through her own family struggles. Her daughter had battled addiction for years before finally getting clean. Her first husband had left her for his secretary. She understood loss and betrayal in ways that most people could not. We spent 2 weeks together. We walked on the beach every morning, our feet in the sand, the Pacific stretching endlessly before us. We talked for hours about everything, the past, the present, the uncertain future. She was the one who made me see something I had been blind to for years. You spent your whole life being Derek's mother, Patricia said one evening as we watched the sunset. But you forgot to be Cora. She was right. I had to find myself entirely through my son. His successes were my successes. His happiness was my happiness. When he rejected me, I had no idea who I was anymore. It was time to find out. When I returned to Vermont, I signed up for a watercolor painting class at the community center. I had always wanted to learn, but never had the time. Now, I had nothing but time. I joined a book club that met every Tuesday evening at the local library. I volunteered at the elementary school helping children learn to read. The kids started calling me Grandma Cora, and something in my heart began to mend. I planted new flowers in my garden. I repainted my kitchen a cheerful yellow. I adopted a gray tabby cat from the shelter and named her Maple. Slowly, day by day, I built a life that was mine. Not Derek's mother's life. Mine. 3 months after our confrontation, I heard news through mutual friends. Derek and Diane had separated. Apparently, she had been having an affair with a coworker for over a year. When the trust fund disappeared, so did any reason for her to pretend. Derek was living with a friend trying to get partial custody of Emma. I did not reach out. He needed to face the consequences of his choices. He needed to figure out who he was without Diane whispering poison in his ear. But I prayed for him. Every night, I asked God to help my son find his way back to himself. 6 months after I closed my door on him, another letter arrived. This one was different. It was handwritten every word. The handwriting was uneven, like it had been written slowly, with great care. Mom, I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know that. I just want you to know that I was wrong. About everything. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking you to fix my problems. I'm asking for a chance to be your son again. The son you raised. The son you sacrificed everything for. Whenever you are ready. If ever. I love you, Mom. I never stopped. Derek. I read the letter at my kitchen table, the same place where I had read the one that had broken my heart. This time, tears came, but they were not the same kind of tears. These were tears of something that might have been hope. I did not respond immediately. I was not ready. But I put the letter in a special place, not in a box under the stairs, but in my nightstand drawer where I could see it every night before I slept. Some wounds take time to heal. Some bridges take even longer to rebuild. But I have learned something important through all of this. I learned that love is not about sacrifice without boundaries. It is about giving, but also knowing when to stop. You can love someone and still walk away. Those two things can exist together. My son broke my heart, but he also taught me the most important lesson of my life. I am worthy of respect from everyone, including my own children. Today, I am at peace. Tomorrow, who knows? Maybe Derek and I will rebuild what was lost. Maybe we will not. But either way, I will be okay. Because I finally learned to love myself first. If you are watching this and you are in a similar situation, I want you to remember something. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Your love is precious. It should be cherished, not exploited. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love, even when it broke your heart? Share your story in the comments below. Let us support each other. If this story touched you, please hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. And share this video with someone who might need to hear these words today. Thank you for spending this time with me. May you always have the courage to choose yourself when the world asks you to disappear. Take care of your heart. It is the only one you have got.